Most people believe muscle growth starts the moment you pick up a dumbbell, that as long as you're consistent with your workouts and push yourself to lift heavier each week, your muscles will grow. But science reveals something far more fascinating and honestly shocking. Real muscle growth actually begins in the brain. That's not just a metaphor or mindset trick. It's neuroscience. When you contract a muscle, whether it's a bicep curl or a heavy squat, the command doesn't start in your arm or your leg. It starts in your motor cortex. A precise signal travels down the spinal cord through motor neurons and into the muscle fibers. This is called the neuromuscular connection, and it's the real engine behind strength and growth. The stronger and more efficient that signal is, the more fibers are activated, and when more fibers are recruited, more growth potential is unlocked. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about moving weight. Your brain's ability to focus during a set, what's called attentional engagement, dramatically changes the outcome. If you're distracted, checking your phone between sets, or just going through the motions, the neural activation plummets. You're lifting the same weight, but your brain isn't engaged. And without the brain fully sending a clear, targeted signal to the muscle, the growth response is far weaker. That's why the so-called mind-muscle connection isn't bro science. It's real science. Studies using electromyography have shown that people who consciously focus on the muscle they're training recruit significantly more motor units than those who don't. You can literally grow faster by training your brain to pay closer attention during each rep. Now let's take it even deeper. Your brain doesn't just send signals, it also adapts to the training itself. Every time you repeat a movement, your nervous system learns. It refines its signals, improves timing, and sharpens coordination. This means that those early gains you see when you first start working out are not from muscle growth. They are from your brain getting better at communicating with your muscles. That's why even without visible size increases, you get stronger in the first few weeks. Your brain is learning, your body follows, and here's something most people completely overlook. Fatigue isn't just in your muscles, it's also in your nervous system. Neural fatigue can dull your motor unit recruitment, making your workouts feel harder, your form sloppier, and your recovery slower. This is why smart programming matters. It's not just about working muscles harder, it's about giving the nervous system time to reset and optimize. Even your perception of effort, that feeling of how hard a set feels, is a product of your brain interpreting feedback from your muscles, heart rate, and breathing. So when you push through that last rep, when everything in your body is screaming to stop and you choose to go one more, it's not your biceps making that decision, it's your brain and the most elite athletes. The ones who seem to grow effortlessly, to get stronger session after session, they've trained their brains just as much as their bodies, their focus is laser, sharp, their movements are intentional, they aren't just lifting weights. They're sculpting neural pathways. This is why the best progress doesn't come from just adding more sets, more reps, or heavier loads. It comes from tuning your brain into your training, from becoming fully present, from understanding that your central nervous system is the gatekeeper of growth. And when you tap into that connection, when you train your brain to lead your body, every set becomes more than just movement. It becomes transformation, because the moment your mind connects deeply with your muscle, that's the moment growth truly begins. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The real magic of muscle growth doesn't happen when you're training. It happens when you're asleep. You can push yourself to the limit in the gym, follow the best workout plan, eat clean, take your supplements, and still struggle to grow. Why? Because your body doesn't build during effort. It builds during recovery. And at the center of that recovery is sleep. Sleep isn't just about resting the body. It's a deeply active process. It's when your brain shifts into specific patterns that drive cellular repair, memory consolidation, hormonal release, and immune recovery. For muscle growth, deep sleep is where the most critical mechanisms are triggered. This includes the release of growth hormone, a powerful anabolic compound responsible for tissue repair, regeneration, and muscle hypertrophy. During slow wave sleep, especially in the early part of the night, growth hormone is released in pulses. This hormone travels through your bloodstream, activating receptors on your muscle fibers. It's this interaction that stimulates protein synthesis, helping your muscles rebuild stronger and thicker. Without sufficient sleep, those pulses are weaker, less frequent, and often disrupted. You're literally missing your most powerful opportunity to grow. But it's not just growth hormone. Testosterone, the other key anabolic hormone, is also intimately tied to your sleep cycle. Research shows that poor sleep, even just a few nights in a row, can cause a measurable drop in testosterone levels. And the lower your testosterone, the harder it is to build and maintain muscle. People think low testosterone is just a problem for older men, but in reality, chronic sleep deprivation can tank it in anyone, regardless of age. That means you could be grinding in the gym and unknowingly suppressing your ability to recover and grow, simply because you're not getting enough quality sleep. Then there's the impact on cortisol, the stress hormone. When you sleep poorly, cortisol levels rise, and elevated cortisol doesn't just interfere with recovery, it actually promotes muscle breakdown. So not only are you missing out on the building blocks of growth, but you're also accelerating the process of muscle loss. It's a double hit. No construction, but lots of demolition. That's not a formula for progress. And let's talk about inflammation. Training creates microtears in muscle fibers, which is a good thing when followed by proper recovery. But sleep is when the body regulates inflammation. Poor sleep leaves those microtears inflamed, healing slower, and increasing your risk of injury. On a neural level, your brain also uses deep sleep to restore motor coordination and rewire movement patterns learned during training. So if you're not sleeping well, your performance plateaus, you're stuck in a cycle of fatigue, soreness, and inconsistency. People are often looking for shortcuts, better supplements, stronger pre-workouts, or fancy recovery tools. But the truth is, none of that matters if your sleep is broken. It's like building a house on a cracked foundation. Everything collapses eventually. Now, what does optimal sleep look like? For most people, it's about 7 to 9 hours of consistent, high-quality sleep in a dark, cool, quiet environment. And ideally, you're winding down in the hours before bed, not scrolling through your phone or spiking your nervous system with stimulation. The hours between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. are when the most regenerative processes occur. Miss that window too often, and your hormonal balance begins to shift in the wrong direction. Muscle doesn't grow in the gym. It grows in your sleep. It grows when you give your nervous system space to recover, when your hormones align naturally, and when your brain finally has the opportunity to rebuild everything your training has broken down. The truth is, if you're serious about building muscle, you have to be just as serious about sleep, because without it, you're training in reverse. We've been told that nutrition is just about fuel, calories in, calories out, grams of protein, carbs, and fats. And while there's some truth to that, the reality is much deeper. Nutrition isn't just fuel for your muscles, it's a trigger, a biochemical signal that tells your brain and body whether it's time to build or time to break down. Every bite you take sends a message, and those messages shape the results you get from your training. When you eat a high-protein meal, your digestive system breaks down those proteins into amino acids. But it's not just about hitting your daily protein target. One amino acid in particular, leucine, plays a key role. It activates a growth signal in your cells called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. This is one of the central pathways that tells your body to build new muscle. If mTOR isn't activated, muscle protein synthesis doesn't occur. You can train all day, but if your brain and body aren't receiving the proper signals from your food, the muscle building switch never fully flips on. But it's not just about mTOR. The brain itself is monitoring the nutritional environment constantly. The hypothalamus, deep in the brain, acts like a master regulator. It's checking nutrient levels, scanning for deficits, and making real-time decisions about energy expenditure, recovery, and growth. If it senses that you're underfed or that key micronutrients are missing, like magnesium, zinc, or B vitamins, it prioritizes survival over growth. That means muscle repair slows down, fatigue increases, recovery suffers. So this isn't just about what you eat, it's about what your brain perceives from what you eat. Omega-3 fatty acids, for example, don't just support heart health, they actually enhance the communication between neurons and muscle fibers. They improve the quality of neuromuscular signaling. So if your diet is deficient in these essential fats, your brain's ability to drive efficient muscle contractions is compromised. You won't feel it right away, but over time, your performance plateaus and your progress stalls. That's how nutrition works. It's subtle, but incredibly powerful. People focus so much on post-workout shakes, and yes, timing does matter, but what matters more is consistency, nutrient quality across the day, every day. Whole foods with dense micronutrients build stronger tissue, not just bigger muscles. The foods you eat literally become part of your structure, your muscle fibers, your tendons, even the neurotransmitters in your brain. That's not just fuel, that's construction material. Even hydration plays a critical role. When you're dehydrated, your blood becomes more viscous, slowing the delivery of nutrients and oxygen to the muscles. Neural transmission slows down, recovery drags, and worst of all, your body can misinterpret dehydration as stress, triggering cortisol release. And as we've already seen, cortisol is not your friend when it comes to growth. So it's not just about eating more, it's about eating smarter, giving your brain the raw materials it needs to send the right signals. Because when your brain gets the message that the body is well fed, safe, and supported, it shifts into an anabolic state. That's when real muscle growth begins. Most people think getting stronger is all about building bigger muscles. They assume that progress in the gym directly equals physical size. But here's the part that catches nearly everyone off guard. During the first few weeks of any training program, the strength gains you experience have almost nothing to do with muscle growth. Instead, they're happening entirely in your nervous system. When you lift a weight, your muscles don't move on their own. They receive electrical signals from your brain, traveling down the spinal cord through motor neurons. These signals tell your muscles when to fire, how intensely to contract, and in what sequence. In the early stages of training, what's really improving is your brain's ability to send those signals more efficiently. It recruits more motor units, fires them more rapidly, and synchronizes them better. The muscle itself isn't necessarily growing yet, but it's becoming more activated, more coordinated, more precise. This neural adaptation is powerful. It's why a beginner can go from struggling to lift 10 reps to handling 15 or 20 with the same weight in just a couple of weeks. The muscle tissue hasn't changed significantly in size, but the nervous system has become more skilled at using what's already there. It's like upgrading the software before upgrading the hardware, and this is where things start to separate average progress from exceptional progress. Because if you only focus on the muscle, how it looks, how sore it feels, you'll miss the most critical part of performance development. True strength starts in the brain, and the more we understand and train that system, the more powerful every physical movement becomes. Motor learning, the process through which your brain refines movement patterns, is a key part of this. When you repeat an exercise with focus and intention, the brain begins to optimize the pathways that control that movement. It eliminates inefficiencies, tightens timing, and reinforces the firing of the correct muscle fibers. This is why form matters so much, not just to avoid injury, but because every rep is an opportunity to sharpen your neural circuitry. Over time, as your nervous system becomes more efficient, you start to unlock new levels of strength. You can lift heavier loads with better control and less effort. And that new strength doesn't just benefit your performance, It increases the mechanical tension placed on your muscles, which is one of the primary drivers of hypertrophy. So ironically, it's your brain that sets the ceiling for your muscle building potential. The more powerfully and precisely it can recruit fibers, the more stimulus your muscles receive, and the more they grow in response. Now here's the part most people don't think about. The nervous system can also get overloaded. Overtraining, too little recovery, or too much stress can wear it down, and when that happens, your performance suffers. You feel slower, weaker, and mentally foggy. It's not just your body being tired, it's your brain losing its edge. That's why rest, proper movement patterns, and even mental focus during training all matter more than people realize. When you train the nervous system with the same respect and intensity that you train your muscles, you unlock a new level of progress, one that starts in the brain and shows up everywhere else. There's a silent force that can completely sabotage your muscle growth. No matter how well you train, eat, or sleep, it's not a lack of protein, it's not poor form, it's chronic stress. And the way your brain responds to stress, especially over time, can either support your progress or completely shut it down. When the brain perceives a threat, real or imagined, it triggers the release of cortisol. This hormone is part of the body's natural stress response, and in small doses, it's useful. It helps you focus, mobilize energy, and survive. But when cortisol levels stay elevated day after day, from work pressure, emotional strain, poor sleep, or even overtraining, it becomes toxic to muscle growth. Cortisol breaks down muscle tissue. It increases protein degradation and slows recovery. So you could be eating clean and lifting hard, but if your nervous system is in a constant state of alert, the body interprets that as a signal to conserve, not grow. Because when the brain senses prolonged stress, it shifts into survival mode. And in survival mode, building muscle isn't a priority. Staying alive is. This is why managing stress isn't just about mental clarity or emotional balance. It's about physiology. When you're stressed, blood flow is redirected away from muscles and toward vital organs. Digestion slows, hormone balance gets disrupted, and recovery processes are delayed. And most people don't even realize it's happening because this kind of stress builds slowly. It creeps into your system quietly through poor boundaries, scattered attention, or relentless stimulation. Even the way you think during a workout matters. If your mind is filled with anxiety or negative self-talk, your ability to fully engage the neuromuscular system is limited. You're not just lifting with your body, you're lifting through a lens of mental resistance. That makes a difference. Focused training is more than effort. It's the absence of noise. But here's the good news. Your brain can also signal safety. Breath work, deliberate rest, time in nature, and even meditation don't just calm your thoughts. They shift your physiology. They reduce cortisol, improve hormonal balance, and create the internal environment your body needs to recover and grow. You can't eliminate all stress from life, but you can change how your brain interprets it. And that shift from chaos to calm is one of the most powerful tools for unlocking muscle growth. One of the biggest mistakes people make when training is doing the same movements in the same way over and over again. They follow a rigid routine, convinced that consistency alone will drive results. But the body, and more importantly, the brain, thrives on variation. Growth isn't just a matter of reps and sets. It's about stimulating the nervous system in new ways that challenge coordination, balance, and control. Your brain plays a massive role in how your muscles adapt. Each movement you perform is a collaboration between the motor cortex and your musculoskeletal system. The more complex or unfamiliar the movement, the more neural activation is required. That activation leads to greater engagement, deeper muscle recruitment, and stronger connections between the brain and body. So when you change the tempo, switch the angle, or introduce instability, you're not just working muscles differently. You're forcing the brain to relearn and rewire. And that rewiring is where real, lasting gains come from. Think about what happens when you slow down the eccentric phase of a lift, the lowering portion. Time under tension increases, yes, but more importantly, your brain must maintain control and coordination under stress. That prolonged demand enhances neural efficiency. It teaches your brain how to stabilize, fire the right motor units at the right time, and sustain effort. You're not just building muscle, you're building intelligence into your movement patterns. Novelty is a powerful stimulus for the nervous system. Introducing new exercises, rotating training modalities, or even changing the order of your sets keeps the brain alert and engaged. When the brain senses something unfamiliar, it pays more attention. It becomes more involved in the movement, and that heightened focus translates into greater motor learning and stronger muscle adaptation. This doesn't mean you need to constantly reinvent your routine or chase complexity for its own sake. But even small shifts, like incorporating unilateral work, using different grips, or altering rep ranges, can wake up the nervous system and break through plateaus. Your muscles may get tired, but your brain should never feel bored. Because ultimately, muscle growth isn't just mechanical, it's neurological, and the more variety you feed your nervous system, the more adaptive, resilient, and powerful your entire body becomes. So when we talk about muscle growth, we have to expand the conversation beyond sets, reps, and supplements. Real, lasting progress begins in the brain. It's your neural drive that initiates muscle activation. It's your sleep that unlocks hormonal repair. It's your nutrition that sends the chemical signals to build. It's your nervous system that builds strength before muscle ever does. And it's your ability to manage stress and embrace movement variety that keeps that entire system adapting and evolving. Muscle doesn't grow in isolation. It grows in response to signals, patterns, and consistency, both mental and physical. And when you begin to train not just the body, but the brain behind it, you're no longer just lifting weights. You're training at the deepest level human physiology allows. You're tapping into the real science of strength. Because muscle growth isn't just physical, it's neurological, hormonal, and deeply personal. And when all of that aligns, the results speak for themselves.